Hi everyone, Michael with Back Olive Games here with another video for Trailer Park Warlords of the Apocalypse. In this video, I'll cover many of the gameplay aspects of Trailer Park Warlords of the Apocalypse. Let's start off with initiative. Trailer Park Warlords of the Apocalypse uses a blind bid initiative system. All this means is that at the beginning of each round, you and your opponent will select a number from an initiative pool with which you'll use to bid. Now I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. Now, each player has an initiative pool. The number of dice in the pool is equal to the number of gang members you have in play at the beginning of the turn. So if you have 4 in play, such as we have here, you'll roll 4 dice. If you have 3 in play, as we have here, you'll only roll 3 dice. You roll your dice and then place them aside. Now we use these tracker boards to help us. So all you do, you roll your dice and you either just put them aside somewhere safe, or you can put them on these tracker boards like we do here. Now the benefit of these tracker boards is that they minimize you from picking up these dice and accidentally using them for some other purpose. So we've rolled our dice, and then at the beginning of each round, each player will select one of these dice to bid. And this is a blind bid or a secret bid. So we use these initiative dials, and these are numbered 1 through 10. So if I was going to bid, say, a 7 here, then I would take my dial, I would spin it over to 7. But I'm going to keep that hidden from my opponent. So I'm going to spin it to 7, but my opponent's not going to know, what number I'm selecting. Though your opponent does know what dice you have in your pool. So you can't keep this hidden, but you do keep the number you're bidding hidden. Now, if you don't want to use these initiative dials, you don't have to. You could simply take some other dice somewhere and say if I'm bidding a 7, I'm going to take this dice and I'm going to put it somewhere out of view of my opponent, and I'm just going to put it on a 7. Right? Bidding isn't simply a matter of selecting your highest die. There are certainly circumstances in which you'll want to go first, and so you will select a high number. Though there are also situations in which you will want to go last, and so it will be to your benefit to bid a lower number. So whoever bids the highest selects an unactivated gang member to activate. That player will then carry out one of 4 actions. You can attack, you can move, you can take a recover action to remove a winded token, and we'll talk more about winded tokens shortly, or you can take a use action. A use action is a catch-all action for several situations, such as reloading a weapon or using an item. So for example, if this player wins the bid, they're going to select an unactivated gang member, and they're going to do something. So in this case, Joe might move, Joe might make an attack. Joe has several options. Then this player will select one of their unactivated gang members to carry out an action as well. After both players have carried out an action, we'll return to a new round, which will begin with a bid and then carry out actions. We carry out in this manner until all gang members have been activated, at which point we start a new turn. We like this initiative system as it introduces a point of friction and decision making, as well as a bit of initiative maintenance. Within each round, or at the beginning of each round, you must look at your situation to determine how important it is for you to go first or last and bid accordingly. The dice mechanic we use is a D10 dice pool versus a target number. This means you'll roll a group of dice and evaluate each die roll individually looking for a particular number. Outside of combat, your target number is virtually always a 6. So, for example, I'll roll this group of dice, and I'm looking for 6s. Each roll of a 6 or more is considered a success. So in this case, I rolled 2 7s and an 8. So I'm looking for 6 or more, so that would be a success. If I roll again, there's a 4, a 6, and a 10. So the 4 is not equal to 6 or more, so it's a failure. However, the 6 and 10 are successes. Outside of combat, the number of successes rarely matters. So long as you have at least one success, the task attempt is considered a success. Inside of combat, the target number can change and the number of successes does matter, though we'll talk about that more in the combat video. As mentioned in the intro video, we use 4 decks of cards in this game, though only these Apocalypse cards are actually required. This deck consists of 50 cards that you can use during the game to give yourself timely bonuses, maybe give your opponent timely penalties. You'll also find cards that allow you to carry out other special actions, such as quickly reloading certain weapons, bonus movement, extra actions, and so on. Now, the more mundane cards appear typically twice, while the best cards or abilities only appear once in the deck. So there can be a bit of deck management involved. Though we find the game plays best when the Apocalypse cards are played often. The mutations, mechanisms, and morphologies decks represent special abilities that your mutants, animals, plants, and robots possess. Now, we refer to these collectively as powers just because it's a little bit easier to say. Each deck consists of 50 cards divided into 25 beneficial and 25 detrimental. For the most part, the beneficial cards are good, and for the most part, the detrimental cards are not so good, though there is definitely a bit of gray area with some of these powers. While we do prefer using these cards, they are not required. All of this is in the book. The Apocalypse cards are not, but all these powers cards are in the book. The cards really help to serve as handy references in the game. There are 2 important points with these powers. First, we are not striving for balance. Some of the beneficial are better than others, while some of the detrimental are worse than others. Second, while some animals, robots, and plants begin the game with specific powers, the rest are random. So let's walk through that with an example with Jethro here. I'll move these to the side. We'll say Jethro here is a mutant. Now, mutants begin the game with 1 beneficial mutation. You can either roll on the tables in the back of the book to determine the beneficial mutation, or, and maybe more fun, you could just simply draw one of these cards. So we'll draw a card, and Jethro drew Explosive Death. That sounds gruesome. Jethro's player then has the ability of saying, okay, I want more. If you take more, you'll get another beneficial mutation. So he draws and he gets Sonic Blast. He also has to take a detrimental, Huge Head. So at this point, Jethro would possess Explosive Death, Sonic Blast, and Huge Head. Let's talk a bit about winded tokens. Winded tokens represent several factors in the game, such as fatigue, stress, loss of morale, and injury. Your gang members primarily will be issued winded tokens in one of 2 ways. The first is by taking excessive actions. When you activate a gang member, you can carry out 1 action for free. You then have the option of pushing the gang member a bit by taking a second action. Though if you take that second action, the gang member is issued a winded token. So I have Opie here. I activate Opie. If he just moves, that's fine. If Opie then wants to make an attack, or if Opie wants to move again, Opie is issued a winded token. The second way of receiving winded tokens is through combat, which we'll cover in the combat video. A gang member can only receive so many winded tokens before being affected. That threshold is equal to their stamina. So a gang member with winded tokens less than their stamina is relatively fine. However, once you have winded tokens equal to or more than your stamina, you begin to feel the effects. Now, most gang members have a stamina of around 2. That's your average gang member has a stamina of 2. If you have winded tokens equal to your stamina, then you are pinned which comes with a -1 D10 to shooting, -1 D10 to fighting, a -1 D10 to guts, along with a penalty to movement. So it's a fairly severe penalty. If you have wounded tokens over your stamina, then you must make a guts check at the end of the turn. So again, if OP has a stamina of 2 with 1 wounded token, OP is relatively fine. If OP gets a second, OP is now pinned along with all those penalties. If OP gets a third, well, then at the end of the turn, OP must make a guts check. And if he fails, he's removed from the game. If you have wounded tokens equal to twice or more than your stamina, so if OP gets a fourth, then at the end of the turn, OP is automatically removed. There's no guts check involved. Now, wounded tokens can be removed by taking recover action. So let's say OP has a wounded token. OP, so he's not feeling it, but he knows he's close. So when OP gets activated, let's say he's behind some cover here, so he feels relatively safe. OP's player can take a recover action and then remove that wounded token. If you take a recover action, that's the only thing you can do that turn. You can't move and take a recover action. You can't take a recover action and move. You can't shoot. If you take a recover action, that's all you can do during that turn. To wrap up this video, I want to point out that Trailer Park Warlords Apocalypse is a scenario-based game. While it is certainly fine to put your forces on opposite sides of the table and just have at it, we find employing scenarios can make the game a bit more exciting, as you are often offered alternative paths to winning rather than having to simply wipe out your opponent. Now, we have about 10 scenarios planned for the book, including Beer Run, Capture the Flag, and Festivus. Well, that'll do it for our gameplay video. Please let us know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching.